All right, in this video I want to talk about future rapture dates. Is it too soon? No, it's not too soon, is it? Now, this may sound a little bit weird, but what I actually want to do is actually discourage doing what was done just about a week ago, not even a week ago, a few days ago, where everybody was saying 9/23 was going to be the day of the rapture, or possibly 9/24. Right? So I wanted to throw some things at you here to get you to think about it, just so that you at least wait a little while before you actually set another date. So the first thing I would like to say is that a lot of people seem to agree that Jesus was crucified in 32 AD. So let's just say that's true. What if that's when the starting time actually starts for the time of Jacob's trouble, right? It kind of continues off where it left off, kind of thing. So what if the rapture happens right before then, right around that? So around 2032. So, we got about 7 years away, right? Just in case you wanted to set a date, well, how about you wait 7 years? Just so that you don't get anybody's hopes up, and we can just hope and pray that it's sooner than that, right? Where I think it's sooner than that, but I'm going to throw out ideas like this to you and to myself to make sure that you don't do that and that I don't do it, right? Set a date, that is, right? Even if we just say, well, I just think this could be the time, right? We're not even going to do that, right? Because I think today's the day, right? That's what I'm always going to say. When do I think it's going to happen? Today, right now, in a few seconds, right? Because I don't know. So I'm just going to put it at the closest time possible, which is now, right? So another thing I would like to say is Jesus was crucified what appears to be on a Wednesday afternoon. And it makes sense because let me shrink this down. When you have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? So we have ourselves the 7 days, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4,000 years. I think I did 8 days here, so forgive me for that. Let's erase one of these. I don't know how I did this. Did I start on Saturday or something? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Why didn't somebody say something? Made me look like a bonehead over here. Anyway, so we see here the fourth day, 4,000 years into creation. So 4 days in. And this was when... Oops, I'm still on the eraser. My bad. This would have been when Jesus was crucified, right? And it was at the end of that day. So there might have been some time left before the next day even started, right? Because we like to go, okay, 2,000 years from that point when Jesus was crucified. But I don't know if that's the starting point. Because in 70 AD, that's when we see a depiction of the 7-year tribulation actually happen. About, I guess you could say 7 years before that it started. So in 63 AD, it almost 40 years after the crucifixion of Jesus, or 30 years when this all started, where Rome actually besieged Jerusalem. And at this time, when the Christians saw the Roman armies come and surround Jerusalem, they left, right? But the Romans stayed, right? The Jews stayed. And Rome besieged Jerusalem. And it went on for about 7 years. About 7 years. And there is even a point there where the commander, I think his name was Titus, something happened to him, he died. But they still ended up finishing the siege. So it's kind of like, even though the Antichrist fellow who's coming against Jerusalem, right, he dies, but they still end up continuing the siege, even though he's dead. There wasn't a resurrection. And eventually Jerusalem falls, right? And when it falls, they destroy the temple. And they finally do that in 70 AD. And during this time, it was a time like none other, where they were starving in the city and they refused to surrender. And it got to the point where they ended up eating their own children. It got pretty horrendous there, right? So what if around 63 AD, 70 AD, that is the starting point to when you actually need to count 2,000 years, right? We're in the latter days, so 2 more years. 2 set millenniums, 1,000 years for a day, as Peter says, right? What if that's the starting point? Is that 63 AD or 70 AD? So that would bring us to the point where the tribulation would start around 2063 or 2070. Now, I don't think it's going to go that long. But I'm making a point here to show that we can see things that would make it look like the rapture could happen in the future, even beyond some of our lifetimes. Right? What was it? Isaac Newton, I think he was saying around 2060 or 2080, he was thinking was when Jesus would return. I don't know how he got to that point in his calculations, but that's where he came to, which is close to this, right? So, so that would give us the 5th day, the 6th day. It would be around, we'll just put 63. I guess we'll put both dates here, or 2070. And then we'd have the 7th here, which is the millennial reign of Jesus. So what if that's the case? And I'm only saying that so that you don't set another date. Like, as far as I know, it's still going to happen. And even this year. Matter of fact, I've been telling people there had been a month off, and the real Feast of Trumpets is actually on the 22nd of October. So maybe the 23rd, when the real last trump would have been sounded, maybe that's when it happens. Or maybe it's on the 8th day of Tabernacles, when it's the last trumpet blast of the year. Right? I don't know. Right? I don't know. Maybe it's just some random day, like right now. Right at this moment. As soon as I'm done with the video, we go, or as soon as you're done watching it. So hurry up. Put it on ×2 so you can get through and go, right? But I just wanted to put this out there just to throw the dates way out there in the future, so that you're not even tempted to set another date. Well, you just, now all you can say is, I'm watching. Like what I say, I'm watching to see when that temple gets built. Right? When they actually start building it, then I'm going to be like, all right, we're about to go. Right? Because we could go as soon as they start building it. We could go as soon as they finish building it. We could go right when they're going to dedicate the temple with a sacrifice of some kind. Right? Where they're actually going to start the sacrifice official services again. That might be the final spit in God's face, where they've openly rejected Jesus to the world and they're doing animal sacrifices again. Where in Hebrews chapter 10 it warns us that, hey, if you've come to the knowledge of the truth, that Jesus is the Messiah, but you go offer up animal sacrifices, there is no more sacrifice left for you. You've just trodden over the blood of the grace that saves you. Right? So, that might be when it's like, all right, time's up. Right? God's going to remove the church, and then he's going to judge. Right? That could be when the end of grace happens. And they could do that very soon. Right? They look like they're planning on doing it very soon. But at the same time, they've been trying to get this done for decades. Right? You could say all the way back in 1967 when they ended up taking over Jerusalem, they were already trying to make plans to build the temple. But it hasn't happened. 60 years. So it could be that it stretches out. You know, people have been thinking the rapture is going to happen for a while. I remember the earliest cases were the Millerites in the early 1800s. Right? So at least as far back as then, people were looking forward to it, and they came up with dates as far back as then. So for almost 200 years, people have been looking for this. They've been wrong, right? So somehow the world just keeps on keeping on. But we do see England coming out with the digital ID, and Vietnam. You might not have heard of this, but Vietnam has actually seized the bank accounts of something like 86 million of its citizens because they refused a digital ID. And I don't know the response to that. I mean, I imagine 86 million people would easily overthrow the government. You took our money, well, we have nothing, so we're just going to come for you then. Right? Because what would you do if somebody took all your money? They took all your food from you and your family. You're just going to be like, oh man, I guess I better go take their digital ID then so I can get my money back. Be like, no, you just stole from me. And you stole from the whole nation. Right? I think it's a test run. Because England's like, oh, we're doing a digital ID. And then in Vietnam, they're like, okay, let's see how far we can push the people. Let's take their money and see if they'll submit to that. Let's see what we have to do to get them to submit to this digital ID. Right? Because if they don't submit to it, we have to find a way to get them to do so. So how about you seize their bank accounts and see what they do. Right? So if the citizens in Vietnam, they end up rebelling, well, they're probably going to be like, all right, so we have to do something about that. How are we going to respond to that if it happens in England or some other place where they start to implement this? And I think ultimately that's why the rapture is going to happen soon. Because when this happens, a lot of Americans, more than 86 million, I believe, will reject wanting to do it. And what are they going to seize? 150 million people's bank accounts and not have a response from all the people with all the guns here? And they know that they can't deal with that without just slaughtering everybody, right? And that ain't going to go over too well, because then the people who have accepted the digital ID, they're going to end up siding with the people that are getting slaughtered by the government. So you're just going to have this super huge problem, right? All this unrest, all this violence and everything. So I imagine that's why the rapture is going to happen soon. And to deal with America and their refusal to go along with this, I think the world's going to start bombing America. Even with supposed nukes. Because I know that the whole world, it's one world government. It already is a one world order. And it's just divided up and compartmentalized so that you think it's divided up. But Vietnam doing what it's doing is working with England and the rest of the world where they're preparing to do this all over the place with a digital ID, right? But the governments are doing it in different areas to test the water to see how things work. And during World War II, when America bombed and destroyed the poor areas, they didn't destroy military bases or government structures when they dropped the bombs there on Hiroshima and Nagasaki there. They destroyed civilian areas, poor areas. They took out all those people because they were helping out the Japanese government. Because even though we were at war, it was right after economic collapse, right? We had the Great Depression. And so the governments of the world, they work together to act as though they're enemies so they can get the people to fight and kill one another. So then everybody just gets worn out and distracted. And then peace comes and everybody's just relieved that it's over. Right? And then the people who are in power, they get to stay in power. The one who caused all the problems, they still get to sit there. So we know that's what's around the corner here. So with all that being said, thank you for your time and attention. Think about these things. Think about them. I'm not saying what I'm saying here for dates is true. I'm just throwing out possibilities to get you to slow your roll. With what we're seeing around the world, it looks like it's very soon. But it's not wise to set a date. If you're going to set a date, always say today. When people ask me when do I think it is, that's what I tell them. I say today. I look at my watch and I'll be like any second now. You know, they just kind of look at me like a weirdo, you know, they don't know if I'm being serious or not. But that's what I tell them. Right? Either that or I'll say, I have no idea. But for the way things look, it looks like it could happen any second now. One or the other, you know. But anyway, thanks again for watching. Take care. I'll see you in the next one, and may God bless you and yours.